You've probably met someone who speaks with absolute certainty on every subject, but seems clueless when asked to explain the basics. They're following a hidden behavioural program you need to see, the low IQ algorithm. It's a series of predictable patterns that make incompetence look like confidence. Today, we decode this algorithm so you don't fall for it again. Low intelligence isn't always obvious. In fact, one of the first signs is overconfidence. People who lack the skills or knowledge to understand how little they know often think they know it all. Psychologists call this the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it's the engine of our algorithm. Once you recognize it, you'll never mistake arrogance for ability again. The low IQ algorithm begins with certainty inflation. In this phase, the person will assert opinions as if they are facts. They oversimplify complex topics, repeating phrases they've heard without understanding them. Because they don't know what they don't know, they dismiss nuance and context. Their tone sounds authoritative, and that tricks unsuspecting listeners into believing them. Next comes the denial of ignorance. When confronted with evidence that contradicts their statements, they double down. They can't recognize their mistakes because they lack the metacognitive skills to evaluate their own performance. Instead of saying, "I might be wrong," they attack the evidence or the person presenting it. This defensiveness is the algorithm's way of preserving self-esteem in the face of limited ability. At around the 2-minute mark, you might be thinking about all the overconfident people you know. If you're enjoying this behavioural decode, tell me in the comments which sign surprises you the most. Your engagement helps the mind's algorithm reach more curious viewers. The third step is complexity avoidance. Low IQ doesn't always mean someone is incapable of learning. Often it means they avoid situations that expose their deficiencies. They choose simple explanations over complex ones, fall back on cliches, and shun topics that require critical thinking. This is why you'll see them gravitate toward black and white arguments. Any grey area threatens the fragile certainty they've built. Fourth, the blame projection subroutine kicks in. When something goes wrong, the low IQ algorithm redirects responsibility outward. They blame co-workers, systems, or the way things are, instead of acknowledging gaps in their own understanding. This is partly due to poor self-awareness and partly a defense mechanism to protect their self-concept. People high in intelligence know mistakes are opportunities to learn. People running this algorithm see mistakes as personal attacks. Now let's interrupt this pattern with a story. A mechanic once boasted he could fix any engine. When a friend brought him a car that was sputtering, the mechanic confidently declared, "It's just a fuel filter." He replaced it and the car promptly died. He blamed cheap parts, bad gas, and even the weather. Everything except his misdiagnosis. Eventually, a certified technician discovered a cracked spark plug. The overconfident mechanic didn't recognize his own limitation. That's certainty inflation, denial of ignorance, complexity avoidance, and blame projection in action. Fifth, there's aggression toward critics. Because low competence individuals can't distinguish between constructive criticism and personal attack, they often lash out. They might use sarcasm, ridicule, or outright hostility. This serves two purposes. It distracts from their lack of knowledge, and it intimidates those who might correct them. Ironically, the more aggressive they become, the more obvious their shortcomings appear to those who understand the subject. Sixth, the echo chamber effect sets in. To protect their self-image, people running the low IQ algorithm surround themselves with like-minded individuals who reinforce their beliefs. They consume media that validates their opinions and avoid challenging perspectives. This not only halts intellectual growth, but amplifies their misplaced confidence. Confirmation bias becomes a lifestyle rather than an occasional error. We're halfway through our analysis. If you're fascinated by how these behavioural patterns operate beneath the surface, subscribe to The Mind's Algorithm. We decode hidden systems every week. Psychology most channels never touch. Seventh, they mistake volume for knowledge. Talking more doesn't mean knowing more. People following this algorithm often dominate conversations, leaving little room for others. They equate speaking at length with understanding, but their monologues are usually filled with vague generalities and recycled opinions. Spotting this helps you cut through noise and identify substance. Eighth, there's resistance to feedback. Constructive criticism is essential for growth, but the low IQ algorithm interprets feedback as an attack. Even when feedback is delivered gently, it triggers defensiveness or dismissal. They might say, "That's just your opinion," without considering that the critic could be offering valuable information. Without feedback, they remain trapped in a loop of ignorance. Ninth, the victim narrative emerges. When persistent incompetence leads to failure, the person portrays themselves as a victim of unfair systems or jealous peers. This reinforces their belief that they're right and the world is wrong. It also attracts sympathizers who validate their narrative, further insulating them from growth. 10th and finally, the cycle of stagnation. Because each phase of the low IQ algorithm feeds the next, the person rarely improves. They lack the insight to recognize their own limitations, the humility to ask questions, and the willingness to do the hard work of learning. They remain stuck, high confidence, low competence. Recognizing this algorithm isn't about looking down on people. We all have blind spots. The Dunning-Kruger effect teaches that the less we know, the more we overestimate ourselves. The antidote is humility and continuous learning. The smartest people are often the first to admit what they don't know. If you ever catch yourself dismissing feedback, oversimplifying complex issues, or surrounding yourself with echo chambers, remember this algorithm. Intellectual growth begins when we acknowledge our limitations and seek new information. Intelligence isn't about always being right. It's about being willing to learn when you're wrong. This decoding of the low IQ algorithm equips you to spot false confidence, avoid being misled, and examine your own assumptions. In our next video, we'll decode the anxious algorithm, the hidden patterns that make people cling and chase when relationships feel uncertain. Stay curious, and remember, understanding the hidden code of human behavior is the first step to mastering it.